The warmth on Ivy Hart's fingertips lingered longer than it should have. It came from the rim of the wineglass she'd been holding the night everything changed, a heat she could still feel, even now, as if memory had fused itself to her skin. Sometimes she wondered why that night lived inside her so vividly. Other times she admitted the truth, the warmth had never belonged to the glass at all. It belonged to Jessie. There were moments, even days later, when Ivy would catch herself replaying the soft shift of Jessie's breath near her ear, or the way her voice had lowered just enough to unsettle something Ivy spent years pretending she didn't feel. And somewhere in the middle of those memories, a quiet question kept rising, one she never said out loud. Have you ever wanted someone you were never supposed to touch, and felt your entire life lean toward them anyway? The thought flickered through her with a slow, unsteady heat. And from within that same breath of confession, something else surfaced, something she whispered inwardly, almost trembling with the danger of admitting it. If only they knew how close I came to losing control that night. Before the memory could unravel further, the narrative inside her shifted, tightening with a kind of breath-held tenderness. Before we fall deeper into this story, if you love WLW narratives filled with tension, slow-burning desire, and forbidden closeness, subscribe, like, and tell me if you have ever felt something like this. The story pulled her back to the beginning, the moment the spark first took shape, long before she understood what it meant. It started with light. Or maybe the way light touches a person can reveal everything they never say out loud. Every morning, in the open concept office, sunlight streamed through the high windows and slid over the glass partitions, landing on Ivy's desk exactly at 9:17 a.m. It illuminated the thin gold bracelet on her wrist, the one she absently traced whenever she was lost in thought. That unconscious gesture, delicate and repetitive, carried something she never named, a quiet ache, a longing for a kind of touch she had never allowed herself to seek. That bracelet became her anchor without her knowing it, the symbol of a desire she kept tucked behind perfect smiles and flawless confidence. But the morning Jessie arrived, the light changed direction. Or maybe Jessie changed the way light behaved around her. Ivy noticed her before Jessie noticed anyone. 22, newly hired, with soft blonde hair pulled into a half-messy twist that kept falling loose, and eyes that seemed too steady for someone so young. Jessie walked with careful grace, but there was something about her, an undercurrent, like a warm current beneath cool water, that made Ivy's breath catch for half a second longer than it should have. "Morning," Jessie said, voice warm but slightly cautious as she passed Ivy's desk. It was the first time Ivy felt the shift. Small. Barely there. But undeniable. Because Jessie's voice had a gravity to it, subtle, low, like a touch that didn't require touching. It moved the air. It moved Ivy. She answered with a smile that felt too practiced for how suddenly unsteady she felt inside. "Welcome to the team." Jessie smiled back, a small, grateful curve of her lips, but in that tiny exchange, something happened. Jessie's gaze lingered a fraction too long, tracing Ivy's face with a softness that felt searching. Curious. Almost daring. Ivy pretended she didn't notice. But she did. Her pulse did too. Around noon, Ivy found herself in the break room, leaning against the counter as she waited for the coffee machine to finish hissing. She touched her bracelet again without thinking. Warm metal, warm skin. The same quiet ache. She wasn't alone. Jessie walked in, carrying a stack of onboarding folders against her chest. She set them down with a soft exhale that seemed to release some invisible tension into the room. The sound, that simple, gentle breath, brushed against Ivy like a feather dragged slowly down her spine. Jessie reached for a mug in the cabinet. Her shirt lifted slightly as she stretched, revealing a delicate line of skin at her waist. Ivy's gaze caught on it before she could stop herself, a flash of warmth spreading through her chest so quickly she almost stepped back. Jessie noticed. Of course she did. She lowered her arm, her mug halfway lifted, her expression unreadable for a beat too long. "You're Ivy, right?" Jessie asked softly. Her voice carried the exact kind of warmth Ivy had been trying not to feel. "Yes," Ivy said, though her voice didn't sound like her own. Jessie stepped a little closer, not too close, just close enough that Ivy could feel the subtle shift in temperature between them. Their shoulders didn't touch, but the air thickened like something had decided they should. "People talked about you during training," Jessie murmured, stirring a packet of sugar into her coffee. "Said you're unforgettable." The spoon tapped the porcelain, punctuating a silence that suddenly grew charged. Ivy forced a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "They exaggerate." "Do they?" Jessie asked, not teasing, not flirtatious. Just honest. Her eyes held Ivy's for a second too long, and Ivy felt that same warmth rise inside her, slow and unwelcome and thrilling all at once. She broke the gaze first. She had to. Her breath had gone unsteady. Later in the afternoon, Ivy walked past Jessie's desk. She meant to continue down the hall, but Jessie looked up at the exact moment Ivy passed, and Ivy felt herself pause mid-step. Jessie was tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a gentle motion, absent-minded, but somehow it felt intimate to witness, like Ivy had walked in on a moment Jessie didn't know she was showing. The strand fell again. Jessie didn't fix it. Instead, she looked at Ivy with a soft, curious tilt of her head. "Everything okay?" Jessie asked. Ivy nodded, though something tightened in her chest, warm and unfamiliar. Jessie's gaze dropped, not to Ivy's body, but to her bracelet. The one Ivy kept touching without noticing. "It's beautiful," Jessie said. "Does it mean something to you?" Ivy froze. No one had ever asked her that. "It's just something I've always worn," Ivy answered. "It's nothing special." Jessie's eyes softened. "Sometimes the things we touch the most," she murmured, "are the ones we don't know how to talk about." The air between them deepened, stretched, grew warmer. Something inside Ivy pulled toward that warmth, quietly, urgently. Jessie looked like she wanted to say more, a half-smile forming, hesitant, almost secretive, but someone from HR called her name from across the room, breaking the moment like a thin thread snapping. Jessie inhaled, steadying herself, then gave Ivy a small nod before walking away. Ivy watched her go, unable to explain why every step Jessie took felt like it drew something out of her. That evening, the office emptied until only a few people remained. The sky turned a muted rose behind the windows. Ivy packed her bag slowly, distracted by a sensation she didn't want to name. Jessie passed by her desk lightly, almost quietly. Ivy didn't look up at first, but she felt it, the slight shift in air pressure, the warmth of someone pausing nearby, the electric awareness crawling up her spine. "Good night, Ivy," Jessie said softly. The words were simple. Too simple for how they landed. Ivy forced herself to meet her eyes. "Good night." Jessie turned to leave, but then, as if she couldn't help herself, she glanced back over her shoulder. Her hair fell across one eye, and she pushed it away with a slow, gentle motion Ivy felt all the way in her chest. Her gaze lowered, briefly, to Ivy's bracelet. Then rose again with quiet intensity. "Maybe tomorrow," Jessie whispered, "you'll tell me what it really means." Ivy swallowed, breath catching. She didn't know if Jessie meant the bracelet, or the look Ivy kept trying not to give her. Jessie walked toward the elevator, the glow of the hallway lights painting her silhouette in warm gold. Ivy watched her disappear behind the closing doors, the final image burned ribbon-hot into her memory. A question rose in Ivy's mind, unsteady, breath-warm, trembling with a desire she wasn't ready to touch. Why does it feel like she already sees the parts of me I've never shown anyone? Ivy didn't have the courage to answer it. Not yet. Her fingers touched her bracelet again. Soft, slow, lingering. as if something inside her was waking up for the very first time. And for a moment, Ivy imagined Jessie's hand there instead. She almost let herself feel it. Almost. The bracelet warmed under Ivy's fingertips again the next morning, as if Jessie's gaze from the night before had left a quiet heat trapped in the metal. She told herself she was imagining it, that she was being dramatic. But her body had its own truth, one she could feel rising beneath her skin the moment she stepped into the office and spotted Jessie across the room. Jessie was laughing softly with someone from IT, her blonde hair catching a slice of morning light. She tucked a loose strand behind her ear, the same slow motion Ivy remembered from yesterday, and something fluttered in Ivy's chest in a way she could neither control nor ignore. She tried to look away. She couldn't. And then, as if Jessie could sense the weight of Ivy's attention, she glanced up. Their eyes connected for a single heartbeat, a quiet, electric moment when the world seemed to still around them. Jessie's smile softened, small but unmistakably aware. Ivy inhaled, too sharply. The first forced proximity happened barely an hour later. The printer in the corner had jammed again. Ivy went to fix it, pulling the tray out and checking the rollers, cursing under her breath at the cheap equipment. She didn't hear Jessie walk up behind her until she spoke, low, warm, close enough that Ivy felt it before she processed it. "Do you need help?" The voice slid down her spine like warmth. Ivy turned her head slightly and found Jessie leaning forward to look at the printer, her shoulder brushing Ivy's for a fraction of a second. The contact was light, accidental, but the air between them changed instantly. Jessie didn't pull away right away. And Ivy didn't either. She felt Jessie's breath near her cheek, warm, steady, subtly charged. "I think it's the roller," Jessie murmured. "Probably," Ivy whispered back. Jessie's hand reached past hers, their fingers nearly touching as she lifted the stuck paper. Ivy's breath caught. She felt the faint heat radiating from Jessie's wrist, the way her perfume inhaled like a soft, floral exhale. The room was too quiet. Or maybe their breathing was too loud. Either way, Ivy stepped back at the same moment Jessie stepped forward, causing their bodies to align for a brief, heated second, shoulder to shoulder, hip nearly grazing hip. Jessie froze. Ivy froze. Something inside Ivy trembled hard enough to feel like a warning. "Sorry," Jessie whispered, but her voice didn't sound sorry. It sounded breathless. Softened. Like she couldn't quite look away. "It's okay," Ivy said, and her voice wasn't steady either. Jessie's gaze flicked to Ivy's mouth. Just for a moment. Just long enough. Then she forced herself to step back, clearing her throat, changing the air between them with one small, trembling motion. But the moment stayed, vibrating, pulsing, refusing to dissolve. At lunch, the team chose the long table, but only one chair was left beside Ivy. Jessie took it without hesitation. Their knees brushed. Not hard, not intentional. But neither of them moved. Ivy felt the contact like a warm line running up her thigh. Jessie shifted slightly, as if adjusting her posture, but the move brought her even closer, their legs now pressed lightly along the length of each other's. Ivy's breath wavered. Jessie didn't apologize this time. She simply let her knee remain there, connected, warm, certain. "So," Jessie said softly while the others talked loudly about weekend plans. "You never answered my question." "What question?" Ivy asked, too quietly. Jessie's eyes slid to the bracelet. Then to Ivy's face. "What it means." Ivy traced the metal with her thumb again, the unconscious gesture she'd repeated her whole life. But with Jessie watching, the movement felt exposed, intimate, almost vulnerable. "It means I don't like taking things off," Ivy whispered. Jessie tilted her head. "Or maybe it means you're afraid to let go of something." The words hit deeper than they should have. like Jessie had reached inside her with a gentle but deliberate hand. Ivy swallowed. "You don't even know me." Jessie's knee pressed slightly, barely a shift, but enough to make Ivy feel it everywhere. "Maybe not," Jessie murmured, tone barely above a breath. "But I notice things." The air thickened. Ivy felt her pulse climb. Jessie looked away only when someone called her name, breaking the tension too abruptly, as if the room needed a moment to breathe without them. Ivy wasn't sure she could. Later that afternoon, the external obstacle revealed itself. Ivy's manager asked her to mentor Jessie through her first big project, a responsibility Ivy normally welcomed. But the moment Jessie walked into the meeting room, closing the door behind them, Ivy felt the air contract. A small room. One table. 2 chairs positioned closer than necessary. Glass walls that made everything visible, except what they were actually feeling. Jessie sat across from her, but leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers intertwined, gaze too focused on Ivy's mouth again before sliding back to her eyes. Professional. It should have been professional. But Ivy could barely focus on the spreadsheet in front of her. Especially not when Jessie's foot brushed hers under the table, a slow, accidental glide that Jessie didn't register at first. When she did, she stilled. Didn't pull away. Didn't apologize. Ivy's breath melted into silence. "So," Jessie said softly, voice dipping into something warm and careful. "How do we start?" With the objectives, Ivy managed. Jessie smiled, a knowing, gentle curve of her lips. She leaned closer over the table, and Ivy felt the heat radiate from her skin, warm enough to make her fingertips tremble. Jessie pointed at a section of Ivy's notes. Their hands almost touched. Her hair fell forward, brushing Ivy's wrist like the faintest kiss of silk. Ivy inhaled sharply. Jessie paused. Too close? The question wasn't innocent. It wasn't teasing either. It was searching, like she wanted the truth. Ivy forced her voice steady. "No." Jessie let the moment settle deeper, like warm water rising around them. "Good," she whispered. The meeting lasted an hour. Neither of them remembered anything about the project. The almost kiss came just before the day ended. It happened in the hallway outside the conference rooms, narrow, softly lit, quiet. Ivy stepped out first, nerves buzzing. Jessie followed, closing the door behind her with a soft click that felt louder than it should. They stood there. Too close. Too aware. Jessie glanced around, no one in sight, then stepped into Ivy's space, not touching, but close enough that Ivy felt her breath along her jaw. "Ivy," Jessie whispered, like her name was something fragile. Ivy turned her head. Slowly. Too slowly. Their mouths hovered inches apart. Their breathing synchronized, rising, falling, rising again. Jessie lifted a hand, hesitant, then reached toward Ivy's bracelet. Her fingers brushed the metal, warm, deliberate, reverent. Ivy's body went still. Jessie whispered, "You don't have to keep pretending you don't feel this." The words softened Ivy's knees. Jessie leaned in, closer, her lips hovering a breath away. Ivy felt her warmth, her scent, the trembling restraint holding the moment together like a wire pulled too tight. Their noses almost touched. Ivy closed her eyes. Jessie did too. And then Jessie exhaled shakily and stepped back, breaking the moment with painful tenderness. "I can't," she murmured, voice trembling. "Not here. Not while you're supposed to be my mentor." The obstacle. The wall. The reason they both stood frozen in that hallway, wanting something neither had the courage to take. Ivy opened her eyes. Jessie was already walking away, slow steps, shoulders tense. but right before she turned the corner, Jessie looked over her shoulder and whispered, "Maybe later." The word slid into Ivy like a spark pressed to skin. A promise. A warning. An invitation wrapped in heat. Ivy touched her bracelet, breath unsteady. For the first time in her life, the metal felt warm for a reason she could finally name. The morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like the pause between two heartbeats, the kind that knows something has already changed and refuses to let the body forget it. Ivy woke with a warmth under her skin that didn't belong to sleep. It wasn't the lingering echo of fear or confusion. It was something deeper. Something that pulsed right beneath her ribs whenever she remembered Jessie whispering her name in that narrow hallway. She tried to breathe past it. She couldn't. By the time she stepped into the office, that inner warmth had become a low, constant hum. And then she saw Jessie, earlier than usual, sitting at her desk, hair falling over one shoulder as she pretended to focus on her screen. Jessie looked up. Slowly. As if pulled by a thread neither of them had cut loose. Their eyes met. And Ivy felt that hum spread through her chest, her throat, the tips of her fingers. Jessie looked away first, but only to gather enough courage to look back with a softness that made Ivy's stomach tighten. Nothing about today would stay contained. The first brush of closeness was accidental. Halfway through the morning, Ivy walked toward the supply cabinet. Jessie reached for the same door at the same time. Their hands collided, skin on skin, warm, startling. Both froze. Jessie's fingers curled instinctively around Ivy's before she snatched them back, breath catching in her throat. Sorry, Jessie whispered. Ivy shook her head, voice quiet. You're not. Jessie's lips parted, just a fraction, but it was enough to betray how badly she wanted to step closer. She didn't. Not yet. Later, Ivy was reviewing a document when Jessie appeared beside her chair, holding a report she needed help understanding. Do you have a second? Jessie asked, her voice low enough that Ivy felt it rather than heard it. Ivy nodded, expecting Jessie to sit in the neighboring chair. She didn't. Jessie stayed standing behind her, leaning in to see Ivy's screen, one hand braced lightly on the back of Ivy's chair. Ivy felt Jessie's breath brush her temple, warm, careful, devastating. A single slow inhale from Jessie. A single sharp exhale from Ivy. Their bodies weren't touching, but the warmth between them filled the small space like a current waiting for contact. Jessie's fingertip grazed the top corner of the document Ivy held. Only the corner. Only a brush. But Ivy felt her entire pulse tighten. I think this part is where I get confused, Jessie whispered near her ear. It wasn't seductive. It wasn't teasing. It was honest. And unbearably intimate. Ivy turned her head slightly, just enough that their cheeks nearly met. Jessie froze, eyes widening, breath stopping midair. The moment stretched. Silence thickened. Their shoulders almost touched. Jessie stepped back too quickly, as if the nearness had startled her own restraint. Sorry, she murmured again, cheeks flushed. But Ivy knew now that Jessie's apologies weren't apologies. They were admissions she didn't know how to express. The shift toward inevitability came mid-afternoon, during a task that should have been unremarkable, reviewing a printed draft in the empty conference room. The door clicked shut behind them, soft but final. Jessie sat across the table, but her foot brushed Ivy's by accident. She pulled back at once, but then, didn't move farther. Ivy felt the tension coil between them. They leaned over the same document, shoulders inching closer with every correction. Jessie's perfume, light, warm, wrapped around Ivy's senses like a hand sliding slowly down her spine. At one point, Ivy stood to reach a marker, and Jessie stood at the exact same moment. Their bodies aligned briefly, chest to chest, a near touch that stole Ivy's breath before it even formed. Jessie didn't step back. Neither did Ivy. Just a moment. Just a heartbeat. Just enough to feel Jessie's breath fan across her collarbone. Jessie whispered, "Ivy." The way she said her name, it wasn't calling. It was yearning. Ivy swallowed hard. "Jessie, we can't." Jessie took one soft step forward. "We already are," she whispered. Their faces hovered close, too close for denial, not close enough for release. Jessie's hand lifted halfway, trembling, then paused in open air as if asking permission in silence. Ivy didn't move away. She tilted her face toward Jessie. Consent, clear, quiet, unmistakable. Jessie inhaled sharply, the sound soft and trembling. Her fingers grazed Ivy's jaw. A feather-light stroke. But Ivy felt it everywhere. Jessie leaned closer, breath brushing Ivy's lips, warm enough to blur her thoughts. "Ivy." A whisper cracked open by need. Ivy exhaled into Jessie's mouth. "Yes." That single word broke the tensioned spine. Jessie kissed her. Soft. Barely there. A trembling brush of lips that felt more like confession than contact. But the second kiss carried the weight of every restrained breath, every wanting glance, every moment they almost gave in and almost walked away. Jessie's hand slid to the back of Ivy's neck, gentle but certain, pulling her into a kiss that deepened only by millimeters, but felt like falling through something warm and endless. Their breaths tangled between them, merging into a rhythm neither controlled. Jessie pulled back only to rest her forehead against Ivy's, panting softly. "Oh God," she whispered. "I've been trying not to do that all week." Ivy's voice broke on the inhale. "Then don't stop." Jessie kissed her again, not harder, not faster, just deeper, as if she was memorizing Ivy's mouth, one trembling heartbeat at a time. When they parted, both were shaking. Jessie cupped Ivy's face with both hands, eyes full of longing and fear and something dangerously close to devotion. "Ivy, this is real for me," she whispered. "I know," Ivy breathed. "And that's why I'm terrified." Jessie stepped back then, one slow, painful step, her fingers trailing down Ivy's arms like the last line of a poem she didn't want to finish. "I shouldn't, not like this, not while I'm still figuring out what you feel." "You know what I feel," Ivy whispered. Jessie closed her eyes. "That's what scares me." She reached the door, hand trembling on the handle, looking at Ivy like she wanted to memorize her before stepping away. Later, Jessie whispered, the same promise, but this time carrying the weight of a confession left unfinished. Then she slipped out of the room, leaving Ivy breathless, lips trembling, body alight with a new truth. The first kiss wasn't the climax. It was the beginning of the fire. And everything after would burn deeper. The air between them didn't settle after the kiss. It thickened. Every step Ivy took the next morning felt heavier, not with regret, but with the echo of Jessie's mouth on hers. It pulsed through her like a soft bruise she kept touching just to prove it was real. But the moment she walked into the office, everything inside her dropped. Jessie wasn't at her desk. Her chair was there. Her jacket. Her mug. But not her. And absence, real absence, hit harder than fear. Ivy pretended to breathe. Then failed. She found Jessie eventually, tucked away in a small phone booth near the back of the floor, the kind meant for quiet calls, not hiding from someone whose kiss had left you shaking. Jessie wasn't on the phone. She was sitting on the tiny stool, elbows on her knees, head in her hands. When she heard Ivy's soft knock on the glass, Jessie flinched. Then looked up. Her eyes were red around the edges. Not from crying, from holding too much in. "Ivy," Jessie whispered, voice barely above breath. Ivy slid inside, closing the booth behind her. The tight space pulled their bodies close enough for Ivy to feel Jessie's warmth radiating from across the small room. Jessie immediately stood, like being eye level made her feel too exposed. "We shouldn't be in here," Jessie murmured. "Why not?" Jessie swallowed. "Because I can feel you breathing." Ivy felt her body react to that, not loudly, not visibly, but in a way she knew Jessie sensed. Jessie backed up until her spine met the glass wall. Ivy moved instinctively to give her space, but Jessie lifted a trembling hand. "No, don't go. Just, don't come closer." Ivy stopped. But God, the ache of wanting to close that distance was a physical thing. Jessie exhaled shakily and dragged her fingers back through her hair. "What happened yesterday? I haven't stopped thinking about it." "Me neither." "That's the problem." Ivy flinched, but Jessie's expression softened immediately. "No. That came out wrong." Jessie swallowed, voice rough with honesty. "It wasn't a mistake. It was too right. Too real. And I don't know how to hold that without breaking something." Ivy stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that Jessie's breath caught. "What are you afraid you'll break?" Ivy whispered. Jessie let out a trembling laugh that wasn't funny at all. "Myself," she confessed. "You. Us. Everything." Her voice cracked on the last word. For a moment, neither moved. The tiny booth felt like a confession box, thick with shared heat and truths that refused to stay buried. Then Jessie's gaze dropped to Ivy's hand, the one she'd lifted unconsciously, brushing her fingertips over the edge of her own wrist where Jessie had held her the day before. Jessie blinked. Something flickered in her eyes, something tender and devastating. "That's where I touched you," she whispered. Ivy's breath hitched. "Yeah." Jessie's chest rose and fell, too quickly. "I keep remembering how you felt under my hands," Jessie breathed. "I keep replaying it, the way you leaned into me. The way you," she broke off, flushing deeply. "I shouldn't say this." "Say it," Ivy whispered. Jessie shook her head. "No. Because if I say it, I'll come closer. And if I come closer, I'll kiss you. And if I kiss you..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the rest heavy in the air. Ivy felt warmth bloom low inside her, not lust, not fire, but recognition. Jessie wasn't retreating because she didn't want her. She was retreating because wanting Ivy scared her in a way desire never had. Jessie pressed her palm briefly to the glass wall behind her, grounding herself. "You make me brave and terrified at the same time," Jessie whispered. "I don't know how to hold both." Ivy felt her heart crack open, soft, aching. "Then hold me," Ivy whispered. Jessie squeezed her eyes shut, as if the words hit too deeply. "I can't," Jessie breathed. "Not here. Not while everything feels so fragile." They tried to work. They failed. Every time Ivy passed Jessie in the hallway, their shoulders brushed, accidentally on purpose. Every time Jessie leaned over Ivy's desk, her breath warmed Ivy's cheek in ways that made Ivy's pulse stutter. Every time Ivy looked up, Jessie was already looking at her. But the distance, that painful, deliberate distance, stayed. Until late afternoon. Jessie appeared in Ivy's doorway, quiet and trembling with something she wasn't ready to name. "Can we talk?" she asked. Ivy nodded instantly. Jessie stepped inside, closing the door halfway, not fully, as if leaving it cracked made the moment less dangerous. "What's going on?" Ivy asked gently. Jessie swallowed. "I saw Mark from legal ask you to dinner." Ivy blinked. "Jessie." "I'm not jealous," Jessie said too fast. Then softer, I shouldn't be. A silence fell, warm, charged, exposing. Jessie's next words came out like an exhale she'd been holding all day. But when he touched her arm, it hurt. I hated how much it hurt. Ivy stepped closer. One slow, deliberate step. Jessie watched her with wide, frightened eyes. I'm not going out with him, Ivy whispered. Jessie's breath trembled. Why? Ivy took another step, close enough to touch, but not touching. You know why. Jessie's lips parted. Her hand lifted, slowly, then dropped, as if she didn't trust herself to close the distance. Ivy. A plea, a warning, a confession. Ivy moved first. She lifted Jessie's hand gently, placing it against her own waist, letting Jessie feel the tremor beneath her blouse. Jessie inhaled sharply. Her fingers tightened reflexively. I shouldn't, Jessie whispered. Do you want to? Jessie's breath broke. You know I do. Then don't let fear be louder than that. Jessie closed her eyes, leaning forward until her forehead brushed Ivy's, soft, trembling, unbearably intimate. Their breaths tangled. Heat pulled between their bodies. Jessie whispered, I'm falling for you. I know, Ivy whispered back. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't either. They were inches apart, hearts beating too fast, wanting too much. Jessie lifted her hand toward Ivy's cheek, slow, hesitant, reverent. Then stopped. Her fingers hovered there, trembling in the warm air. Inches from touch. Inches from surrender. Jessie exhaled, breaking her own heart. I can't, she whispered, stepping back. Not when everything is this fragile. Ivy felt the loss like cold water over warm skin. Jessie reached the door, hand curling around the edge, not opening it, not closing it. Just holding it. A symbol of the choice she couldn't yet make. She looked back at Ivy, eyes full of desire and fear warring silently. Maybe later, Jessie whispered. This time it sounded like a promise she was terrified to keep. Then she slipped out, leaving the door half open behind her, neither invitation nor rejection, just a trembling pause between wanting and being ready. Ivy stared at that half-open door for a long time, her breath uneven, her hand pressed to the place Jessie almost touched. A message formed on her phone screen. She typed, I want you. Her thumb hovered over send. She deleted it. She typed again. I'm scared too. But not of you. Of how much I want you. Her breath shook. She deleted it, closing her eyes. Nothing sent. Everything felt. And the door Jessie left half open stayed exactly as it was. A decision waiting to happen. The night Ivy finally reached out, the city felt unnaturally quiet, like the world itself sensed she was standing on the edge of something she couldn't take back. She had stared at Jessie's half-open door for days in her mind, replaying the tremble in Jessie's voice, the warmth of her forehead resting against hers, the kiss that still lived on her lips like a secret pulse. But longing has a way of becoming its own kind of ache. And ache, eventually, becomes truth. So she knocked. Soft. Barely a sound. The door opened before she lowered her hand. Jessie stood there, hair loose, breathing uneven, eyes widening the moment they found Ivy's. Not surprised. Not unprepared. More like she'd been waiting. Ivy, Jessie whispered, and Ivy felt her heart tilt toward the sound. Can I come in? Jessie hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because wanting this badly had frightened her for weeks. Still, she stepped aside. Ivy walked in, closing the door slowly behind her. It clicked softly, a gentle, irreversible sound. There were no lights on except a single lamp, the same warm glow that had once illuminated Ivy's uncertainty. Tonight it illuminated something else entirely, two women finally done running from the truth. Jessie stood with her back to the window, hands at her sides, fingers curling and uncurling like she was holding back an entire storm of emotions she didn't trust herself to release. "I didn't think you'd come," she breathed. Ivy approached her, not quickly, not timidly, but with the quiet certainty of someone who had finally stopped lying to her own skin. "You left the door open," Ivy whispered. "I just finally walked through." Jessie let out a soft, broken sound, relief, disbelief, desire. When Ivy reached her, Jessie shivered. Not from cold. From recognition. "Jessie," Ivy murmured, lifting a hand to gently brush a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I want to be brave with you." Jessie closed her eyes. "I don't want to hurt you." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because when you kissed me, nothing in me was confused." Ivy swallowed, voice trembling. It was the first thing in years that felt right. Jessie opened her eyes again, wide, glistening, undone. "And what do you want now?" Jessie whispered. Ivy stepped closer until their fronts barely touched, warmth aligning in quiet, devastating alignment. "You," Ivy breathed. It was not a declaration. It was surrender. Jessie reached up slowly, her hand hovering near Ivy's cheek in silent question. Ivy leaned into the touch before Jessie even completed the gesture. That was all the permission Jessie needed. Her fingers slid into Ivy's hair, guiding her forward until their foreheads met, a soft press, warm, steady, intimate enough to make Ivy's knees weaken. Their breaths mingled. Slow at first. Then quicker. Then shaky, as if the nearness had turned the air itself into something they had to learn to breathe together. "I've wanted you from the moment I saw you," Jessie confessed against Ivy's cheek. "I just didn't know if I was allowed to." "You are," Ivy whispered. "You always were." Jessie's other hand found Ivy's waist, fingers trembling as they rested there, not pulling, not claiming, simply letting the connection settle into something that melted Ivy's insides. They stood like that for a moment, breathing each other in, letting the months of restraint soften in the warmth between them. Then Ivy tilted her head just enough for their lips to brush. Not a kiss. A question shaped like a breath. Jessie answered it with a trembling exhale. Their mouths met, slow, deep, warm. The kind of kiss that didn't rush, didn't demand. It simply unfolded, like two truths discovering how to fit against each other. Jessie pulled her closer with gentle fingers at the back of her neck, and Ivy felt her entire body respond, opening, yielding, grounding. Every kiss she'd ever had before this one dissolved into insignificance. This was the one her body had been trying to find for years. Jessie's lips moved with careful intention, exploring Ivy's mouth in delicate, reverent strokes that made Ivy's pulse flutter helplessly. It wasn't heat first. It was understanding. Recognition. A kind of intimacy she didn't know her body was capable of. And then, slowly, inevitably, warmth deepened. Jessie's hands traced Ivy's sides through her blouse, fingertips light but certain, the contact sparking through Ivy like a current she'd never been touched with before. Ivy's breath stuttered. Her knees threatened to give. Jessie felt it. "Hey," she murmured, brushing her thumb along Ivy's jaw. "I've got you." The way she said it, tender, protective, wanting, sent a tremor through Ivy that she couldn't hide. Jessie kissed her again, slower this time, almost unbearably gentle. Something in Ivy loosened, something that had been locked, muted, unreachable. She felt heat bloom inside her, not sharp, not rushed, but rising with steady, overwhelming clarity. Jessie sensed it, her touch becoming even softer, her lips lingering just a heartbeat longer each time. Ivy's breath grew uneven, her fingers curling in Jessie's shirt for steadiness. "Ivy," Jessie whispered, her forehead resting against Ivy's temple. "Breathe with me." And Ivy did. They inhaled together, slow, deep. Exhaled together, trembling, warm. The rhythm aligned. And then the wave came. Not loud, not sudden, but undeniable. A warmth, a trembling release, spreading through Ivy with aching sweetness, the kind she had chased for years and never touched, not once, until this moment. Her body answered itself, completed itself, finally arrived. Something inside her broke open into light. Jessie felt Ivy's breath catch and wrapped both arms around her, holding her steady as Ivy leaned into her with a soft, stunned sound, the sound of someone experiencing, for the first time in her life, what true intimacy could unlock. Jessie kissed her cheek, her temple, the corner of her mouth, whispering, "I've got you. I've got you." Ivy clung to her, shaking softly, overwhelmed and transformed all at once. When it passed, Ivy rested her head on Jessie's shoulder, breath warm and uneven against her skin. "That," Ivy whispered, unable to finish. Jessie smiled against her hair. "I know." "No," Ivy breathed, lifting her head, voice trembling. "You don't." "Jessie, I've never felt that. Not once. Not with anyone." Jessie's face softened, eyes deepening with something close to awe. "Then I'm honored," she whispered. "And I mean that." Ivy touched Jessie's cheek gently, tracing the warmth there. "You didn't take me somewhere," she murmured. "You brought me home." Jessie closed her eyes, as if those words reached the very center of her. Later, they sat on the couch, legs tangled, lamp still glowing the same warm light Ivy had noticed the first night they ever spoke. Except now, it didn't feel distant. It felt like it burned for them. Jessie played with Ivy's fingers, brushing her thumb along the lines of her palm as if committing her to memory. "Are you scared?" Jessie asked softly. "Yes," Ivy said. "But not of this." "What then?" "How much I want you." Jessie leaned forward, pressing the softest kiss to Ivy's wrist, a slow, reverent touch that made Ivy inhale sharply. "Then we'll want each other," Jessie whispered. "And take our time learning how." Ivy smiled, eyes glistening. For the first time in her life, desire felt like truth instead of pressure. For the first time, she felt whole. Later, as Jessie rested her head on Ivy's shoulder, Ivy traced the shifting glow of a lamp on Jessie's skin, the same light that once symbolized confusion. Tonight it symbolized arrival. A beginning. A warmth she no longer feared. And she thought, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop pretending you're not meant to feel this. She whispered, "Jessie?" Jessie hummed softly. "MM? Thank you for letting me find this." Jessie lifted her head and kissed her gently. "Thank you for choosing it." Their foreheads rested together again, the place where every turning point between them had begun. Ivy exhaled tenderly. Have you ever wanted someone so deeply it scared you straight into honesty? Before we end this journey, if you felt this story, its tension, its longing, its heat, its tenderness, make sure to subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever discovered a part of yourself in someone else's touch?